Well, welcome back, guys, to a new episode of Anime Hub. Today's episode will be on Great Pretender. It's something we've wanted to do for a hot minute. I think we announced it some weeks ago, so we're finally getting around to it. Now that Francisco has gotten the time to watch it, especially since the release of the dub on the 28th of August.
Oh yeah, on Netflix. So that was pretty sick. Netflix in America, at least United States and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know what was crazy? My dad actually saw it before I did. 'Cause he uses my Netflix account. So when I
That's
was
kind of
hopping
fun.
on to, it was like when I was hopping up to watch it, I was like, "Do you want to hop on back where you left off?" Which was like episode 5. So the guy just finished the first arc.
Hmm.
But you were the
Yeah.
one who was like you were hyping it up, being like this is like from which studio, anime original. We don't get these often. Better and the best part is that it's actually really good. So I think
Yeah.
Nikhil, like what is the Great Pretender? Like what's the premise? What's the deal with this? Like
So
what?
for those of you who are interested in Persona 5 at all, it's kind of like the anime version of Persona 5, where you have these con artists or confidence men who kind of, eh, for lack of a better term, they essentially con the rich or the greedy. But these rich and greedy people aren't like normal people. They're like usually crooks or like really bad, really, really bad people that like do things that are very bad to kind of like attain power. So by taking away or destroying their livelihood, they're kind of saying like it's like almost like making a statement, and they're like putting people to justice. They're kind of like superheroes, except they're also taking their money in the process. So it's kind of like Persona in that regard, where in Persona you had to go through these like souls and stuff to like purge their bad selves. It's kind of similar in The Great Pretender, but in this case, they're actually taking the money and whatnot. But that's the premise of the show, basically. These confidence men going around scamming these like really high, rich profile people who are really bad people, and kind of getting vengeance for the people that they've wronged, and getting quite a bit of money from them too. It's really entertaining, really fun. I was on this hype train for a while. I think I told you about it, Francisco, back in June. I think, I'm not wrong. June,
I wouldn't
right?
be surprised. I was like early in
Yeah,
the
I'm
year.
pretty sure it was June. How I heard about it was I was looking for some new anime to watch this last summer. I was on a insane anime grind, and I came across A Great Pretender. I watched the trailer and I was like, there was literally no one talking about it in June. Obviously because it hasn't come out in America, and this was well before the announcement that it was gonna come to America. So it was a Japanese Netflix exclusive at the time. So there was like no buzz about it in NA. So I was like, "Oh my god, like this looks so cool," and no one is talking about it. So then I proceeded to like pretty much binge the entire show in 2 days, and I loved it. I had such a good time with it. And I was so excited. And then about like 2 weeks after I finished, I think that's when they announced that it's gonna come to North America Netflix in August. And I was super excited. I watched the entire thing in subs, but I actually think the correct way to watch the show is in dub because of the extremely diverse cast. In the Japanese subs, they will tell you in the first episode, for lack of translation, we were gonna just dub the rest in Japanese. But it's really, I just feel like it would accentuate the characters a lot more and the feeling of the show if you watch it in dub. I think Francisco, you watched it in dub, so I think you can speak to that a lot more than I can.
Yeah, that was fine. I had no issues with it. I actually thought for a slight moment because they do this thing for both, right? Because the characters within the show are multi culture and national. They span throughout the entire planet, and like you have people speaking Japanese. You have one of the main guys. He's from France, right? So he speaks French. And then
Yeah,
you have English, which is like the language of business or whatever. Kind of effectively the story. I think the main dude, the protagonist, right, the one who's like brought into this con artist lifestyle from the French guy who's like the ringleader or whatever.
edamame.
Yeah, Namame. Yeah. See, I forgot his name. Namame, which is he's bilingual, right? At least I know he's bilingual. He can speak English and Japanese, but everyone loves to tease him about his Japanese because he picked it up as he went. So it's a combination of like different it doesn't have a root home, which speaks a lot about like him as a person and character, right? Because like the English that he speaks effectively in universe doesn't have an accent, or if it does have an accent, it's like mixed from different locations because he picked up different mannerisms as he went throughout his life because he didn't learn English traditionally. It's just as it went by, I mean, like all things considered, like English is a pretty difficult language, and it's great that like Edamame was able to pick up English, and because it came out really in handy when he went with the French guy, and then he went to LA for the first arc. So something cool, kind of cool that they do for both the Japanese and the English stuff is that in universe they're going to continue speaking English, right? But to make it easier, which studio or like the director behind it, they decide to add a little notice cards like from this point everything's gonna be translated into one language, when in reality they're speaking multiple languages. I know in Arc 3, Arc 3 they it takes place in France. I think Arc 2 takes place in Britain, or I'm not too sure. No, it doesn't take place in Britain. Do you know where it takes place by any chance?
Arc 2 takes place in the Middle East, and Arc 3 takes place in France.
Actually, Arc 2 has things of the Middle East, right?
It,
Okay, I'm
it takes
checking right
place in
now.
Dubai.
Singapore. It takes place in Singapore.
Oh yeah, it's in Singapore, but the focal point is about the war between America and Iraq, which is amazing. I think the fact that they were able to kind of like put that into an anime, incredible. Like I personally love that. And I can get more into that a little later. You can
Yeah,
continue.
let's try going through the arcs sequentially.
Okay.
I think Nikhil, you mentioned that there's going to be a total of 20 something episodes, right? I'm checking out
24
the
episodes. 24
yeah,
episodes.
24. I'm checking out the Wikipedia page right now, and the next arc is gonna air on September 21st over at Netflix Japan. So it's gonna be like a while until America gets to like it's usually on average like 6 months or so until America gets the from Netflix to American Netflix. I mean, if you have a VPN, you can like watch it in
Yeah.
any place. It's here I'm reading it's the Wizard of the Far East. That's gonna that's gonna be the name of the arc. The first arc's name was Los Angeles Connection, which is about the new guy that got introduced into this con artist group. Next one was Singapore Sky, which was about the one of the female leads of the crew, and Singapore Sky is another one of the female leads because effectively there's like four main cast members. The French guy, which is like the ringleader, the new guy, which was the first arc, it's the Japanese Edamame fella, and I think let me see if I can remember her name because
It's a
do you
edamame,
remember?
then Abby, and then there's one more.
Yeah, Abby was the one who dealt with the Middle Eastern and the Singapore Sky one. And I think on Snow of London we had Cynthia. She was the one like trying to like find closure for her love interest or the guy she was effectively gonna marry, but it just didn't work out because of money problems. But we'll get more into those later. The last arc, which is looks like it's gonna be the longest because it's like from episode 15 to what 24 or 23. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's about what basically the main character, or the character that we don't know much about, the Great Pretender. Um,
Yeah, like
so
the one for the epithet that fits. And it's Wizard of the Far East, which is interesting because that reminds me of Wizard of the Wizard of Oz. It's just like a lot of people know Wizard of Oz, right? It's this guy who we within the in universe. It's this guy who like tries to do effectively the Wizard of Oz is also a con artist, so it's really cool that the title for the next art is reminiscent of that. Actually, now that I think about it, Wizard of the Far East might also relate to the that might be one of the main guy because the Far East or the East is Japan, right?
yeah, I was thinking it's gonna be Japan. Something related to Japan is very likely.
That
I
sounds about
think it'll
right.
be interesting to see what they're gonna do though.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm excited for which studio. I guess we can talk about a bit about which studio before we move on to
Oh yeah,
the art
yeah. Which
specifically.
studio has some insane anime? We were actually just looking into this morning, but um, one anime that I think pretty much everyone knows by now is Vinland Saga, and that was probably the anime of the year in 2019.
You liked it
Um,
that much? Surprising.
I think Beastars was for me the best one of 2019, but I think Vinland Saga was definitely up there. I think Vinland Saga was insane. Um, so it's obviously known for that, and Attack on Titan, which I feel like everyone knows at this point. If you know anime, you know Attack on Titan. And Wit really came with their fist swinging when they came out with AOT. So they have some pretty high profile anime under their belts.
Yeah, they also have Kabaneeri, which is a kind of an Attack on Titan one, which is but just about zombies and it's a train. It's really pretty. That one's really pretty. It's a Wrath of the End. I remember that one I thought might be hype because it's another Attack on Titan-ish clone. Like, humanity is pushed to the brink by vampires this time instead of Titans. So it's interesting how they like picked up some IPs that were super similar to Attack on Titan. I mean, now they're like, they don't only have Attack on Titan, right? They have like a few others. Like you mentioned, they had Vinland Saga, which I something unique about Vinland Saga and something unique about that I feel about Great Pretender is that I feel like they're timeless stories for what they are. Like Vinland Saga is a story about like, let me think. It's a war. It's about revenge. You have war. You know what it means to be free. Overall, I think it was a really good watch. It was 24 episodes. My old man watched it too, and every time I think about Vinland Saga, I kind of want to rewatch it. I do. I love the messages behind Vinland Saga. The mangaka also wrote Planets before Vinland Saga, and a lot of the themes are shared amongst those two, which is very common when it comes to mangakas. I mean, one of the most common ones is Togashi, who wrote Yu Yu Hakusho and then went up to write his magnum opus, which is Hunter x Hunter. They share a lot of themes in common from Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter. It's just like Hunter x Hunter is the more refined version of what Togashi wanted to do with Yu Yu Hakusho.
Mhm.
So that's I mean, which is I mean, when it comes to people, like they have like certain messages they want to get through to their audience. They always resonate in the stories that they're trying to tell.
Yeah, I think Wit Studio is really good at making characters emotional. I like
They
relatable and a very
Yeah.
human aspect. I think that's like unlike a lot of anime and manga, like they really do tackle like emotion, like human emotion, and they make it so relatable to the point where like you can really see yourself in that character. And I think they did that so well in The Great Pretender. With each character and each arc, you really felt that. Um,
It's the people
and
behind which studio really know what kind of IPs they want to pick on and the directors they want to get involved in
yeah, for
or they
sure.
want involved in the project.
100%. I think, personally, Wit Studios is not my top 3 studios, but I think Wit Studios has produced some incredible anime, overall. And as a studio, they're so solid. They have great IPs under their belt. I mean, a lot of people were doubting The Great Pretender actually because this was, I believe, their first original. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pretty sure it was.
Yeah, it looked like it was one of the
Um,
originals.
And so a lot of people I know were doubting Wit Studio and criticizing them heavily because they pulled out of AOT the last season because they were like, "We can't do it," and they decided to do The Great Pretender instead. I personally think they made the correct decision. I think The Great Pretender is fantastic, and they really knocked it out of the park with this, original, which is crazy. So I'm really happy with it.
I love the Great Pretenders aesthetics, dude. It feels so modern and like
The animation is so crisp, so clean, so beautiful, so colorful. The animation is beyond gorgeous. I was talking to someone last week, and she was telling me, like, I can't really vibe with the story, which not everyone can. But she was like, "Yeah, the animation is really what drew me in." And I think the animation is just gorgeous. It's something it definitely feels like something almost out of a comic book, like, on a screen, if that makes sense, which is kinda crazy. It's very
yeah.
pleasing to watch.
Yeah, it visually it's great. And I all the characters are young, right? And this goes with the aesthetic thing that I was talking about. They're young, but they feel like they're going somewhere with their lives, and everything's super exciting all the time. And the fact that they're able to travel. One of the craziest thing about Great Pretender is that it's one of those stories that made me want to learn a different language because I want to travel and meet people the way everyone in here is doing it. It's insane because like the Great Pretender from the first arc to arc number 3, it spans approximately. We know because it's not like everything happens all at once, right? Which is something I really appreciate because it feels like you see so many stories they happen like a lot of things happen. One of the biggest examples, like Hunter x Hunter, for example, the their one of their main arcs is an invasion arc into a palace, which like a lot of content happens during during that section, but effectively only lasted like 20 minutes in real time, which is crazy. But something that I enjoy about The Great Pretender is that it spans from from I think 5 year range or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised. I know for sure
Mhm.
2 year range because something happens that leads these characters to not be able to meet up again for 2 years
I
minimum.
think I think they make it so like each arc feels like a movie. So you're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like sitting down and watching a movie all at once, and like you can take a break between each arc and be like, "Wow, I just watched this in this continuity," and then like there's definitely like a time gap between those, so like it really feels very condensed, very precise, very like put together. I think in those like 4 to 5 episodes, I like.
And I want to really like emphasize that these characters, for the fact that they don't spend every single day together, but like they do are friends with one another, kind of. They're like, I know they're, the first arc, one of the biggest thing is that it's a new guy. And Abby, for example, didn't accept the new guy up until the end of arc two, right? So they're not technically friends, but they're definitely people who can banter with one another. And by arc three, I wouldn't be surprised if every single one considers themselves each other's friends, even no matter what they say about like if things go south, you just bail on each other, right? So it's crazy that like these people can just get back together years later, and even though like they might have changed, they still have some kind of chemistry because everyone worries about like, am I ever gonna see like this friend of mine? Are we gonna be able to hang out like this years into the future? And I love that Great Pretender just takes that and just doesn't even. I wouldn't say acknowledges it, but rather says it's like something that we shouldn't really think about because of like if you're meant to hang out with a friend of yours, it's gonna happen no matter what. What Great Pretender really feels like to me is that it is a lot of freedom involved with their actions. Like they're not told what to do by anything above them, right? And it's crazy because the guys in this con group, what they're going up against are people who are above the law, right? And the law is considered like the highest level of authority, and they're above the law because of how much money they have. And whenever they go up against these people, they bring them down through these like elaborate strategies or whatever, and you just see it played out throughout the arc. And which just adds emphasis to the fact that like I was talking about like how they feel like they have so much freedom going to them because not only does it feel that because they're going up against people who are above the law, which is the highest form of authority. But once they like outdo these people, like what can touch these guys? Like they can do whatever they want. They go wherever they want. They meet whoever they want. They talk any language. Like borders are not a thing to them. They're just good people who just want to have fun.
Yeah, I think it kind of explores that concept of freedom a lot more, especially in I think making it around younger characters for that reason is very smart and a very good idea. Um, I think we can start going into the arcs individually to kind of emphasize that. Um, and the first thing I wanted to talk about was the first arc, and in relation to what you just said, Francisco, where we kind of see Edamame like leave Japan, and then he's like, "Yo, I just have to go to America now. I guess I'm going to America," and it's just like, like that kind of like freedom of like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. That kind of vibe. I think that's kind of cool. I think it's very
Yeah.
unique, and it more than unique. I think it's very fun, and they kind of like right out the bat in the first episode, you kind of feel that like, although it does get really serious, it also does get like you can tell right at the gate in the first episode, it's gonna be a fun anime. It's gonna be a ride. And I think they do a really good job of that by emphasizing this level of freedom that these characters have, and the fact that like everything happens for a reason and everything will happen for a reason. It's almost like they believe in destiny, which is kind of cool. So
Yeah, I
uh,
did get
I,
that kind of vibe, and
yeah, I enjoy that quite a bit. I think it's nice, but I think we can start talking about the arcs, and I really want to start talking about the first arc specifically, especially to our audience in America. I think for me personally, the first arc was my favorite because I'm from America. I'm personally specifically I'm from California, and it was set in California, and that was just insane to me. They even had the In-N-Out burger sign when the plane was flying into California, and I just freaked out. Again, I have never seen an anime that has had that much accuracy before. In fact, they got LA almost perfectly. Like that is like very LA. Like they got that down to a T. And I was just amazed. I was like, damn, like I have not seen an anime that has done something like The Great Pretender has in the first arc.
I think
Um,
I understand the kind of like attention to detail. I've what's it called? Your Name, for example, one of the most of their set pieces are just taken exact by locations in Japan. I think you've seen a couple of the pictures, right? They're like famous location for Your Name right at the end when they're going up the stairs.
yeah.
And then it's like that's you've probably seen the comparison of like how it was animated, like the drawing or whatever the scene, and then a picture of it how it looks in real life.
Mhm.
Your Name does a really good job at getting those details of those locations, of those specific locations of the movie in real life, and just bringing it to life. Just like the Great Pretender. The Great Pretender, I don't know. I'm not too sure if it takes these locations exact, right? Like it does for Your Name. But I think you were onto something in that they get the vibe of LA correctly. Like
I
they
mean,
it feels
I
like.
I just
Mhm.
think like for some place that's not Japan, because I feel like a lot of places like they get Japan down pretty well, but for like an anime, so a cartoon that's produced in Japan, to get something so accurate in a place like LA, like I personally have not seen that or heard that in any anime.
I think yeah. In that case, yeah, I agree.
I think it's just very unique in that regard. And like right off the bat, that's kind of what drew me in. The fact that they were able to really get it super super accurate in that regard, and you really felt like wow, this is LA. And like honestly, like as someone who's been to LA quite a few times, um yeah, pretty much they got that vibe almost perfectly. Like you really felt like you were in LA, like you were in LA with the character, which was really cool. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
I mean,
And I think having the emotional rapport, like you in the first episode, we see Edamame and the Great Pretender. I forgot his name, which is unfortunate. Um, you see the rapport, and then you see Lucy. I think what was it, Lucy? Um, Abby. You see Abby, and then you see the Great Stallion, the famous movie director. I think it's really interesting to see like that first episode being like super like what is going on? And then like you see that parallel of like the people's lives. For example, the bodyguard and his kid and his wife who died, and like him kind of like almost living paycheck to paycheck. And he's like, yeah, I'm just trying to support my kid right now so I can like get him back to me. Like, I feel like it's really like you like being able to see that. I think in a span of 4 to 5 episodes is so good, and that's
it,
kind of what drew me into the show. Like, you really their character was oddly flushed out for only being 4 episodes. See, like the bodyguard was only relevant for 4 episodes. But in those 4 episodes, they made me feel for him like no other character. I was like, damn, I am rooting for this guy. I want him to get his kid back. Like, I was like feeling for him. And they did that so well. I feel like progressively it didn't get as good. I feel like in the third arc they didn't do that as well. But I think in the first and the second arc they did that so good because they really like flushed out these characters and really made them like personable and emotional. And that's I think something very unique. Again, going back to our conversation about how like which studio does things and makes a lot of their anime really personable and emotional. I think they were able to do that so well in a span of like 4 episodes per arc, and that was one of the highlights for me in arc one. Um, and that's not even speaking to the music. First of all, they had hip hop as a soundtrack or as a background noise. And again, that's dope. And not only was it hip hop, it was American hip hop. So it wasn't like Japanese or Korean hip hop, which I think is more common in anime, but it was like rap. Um, I don't remember the rappers unfortunately, but it was something from like the 90s or early 2000s, which is crazy. Again, they're using American rappers to do like a soundtrack in an anime. Like that's just blew my mind. And then obviously, like we cannot forget. I mean, we can't forget the incredible opening and ending of the show. Um, I mean, it was pretty good. It's Freddie Mercury, and Freddie Mercury's a legend. So like, The Great Pretender is an actual song, and they used that song in the show, which I thought was next level. But again, Freddie Mercury is a Freddie Mercury song. I don't know, that just blew my mind, and I was like, wow, throwback. So
Yeah,
like,
what real throwback, dude. We weren't even around.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, throwback. I mean, I've listened to like hit some of his music way back when, but I think I don't know. I think it's just cool. I think it's really cool that they incorporate like all these elements to really tell a story, but they tell it so effectively to the point where you feel like, wow, this is really like LA. And for like again, for our American viewers and specifically our California viewers, I really do encourage you guys to give it a try. I think you'll see a lot of like LA in the show and you'll really feel the vibes in it. And I think
Yeah.
that's what sets The Great Pretender, I feel like, apart from a lot of other anime, especially this year, because it really not only draws you in, flushes out each character within the span of 4 episodes. It doesn't dilly dally, and then the attention to detail is just so good. So, I mean, the first arc was just fantastic. Soundtrack was awesome too. So, like, can't
Yeah.
complain.
I wanted to, when you were talking about I was wondering like what kind of director they had behind The Great Pretender, so I looked it up, right? And it's Hiro Kaburagi, and it looks like here from the anime stat positions, the guy was involved in 91 Days, which is this bootlegging Prohibition era revenge anime with 12 episodes. It's an original, if I remember correctly. I'm like 90% sure it was an original. I've watched it. It's like once again, it's another one set in America, right? So I'm like, there's something behind this director, and he loves this old school vibe of America, and like this kind of image. And I feel it in Great Pretender definitely shows like what's crazy and what's interesting about America from the perspective of an outlooker, right? In addition to like they get the details right. They got LA right, and they got like what makes it so interesting. But 91 Days similarly shows you what the aesthetic for how the Prohibition era was for gangsters during the time, and
Mhm.
which like had me thinking what other animes there were out there that also take place in America, right? I mean, the one of the most recent one is the uh Rampa Apare. This is an anime currently that's airing. It's Apare Rame or something like that, which is Ranman. There you go. Yeah, Apare Ranman, which is also another original. It's about this like cross-continental race throughout America, like during the 19th century or the 20th century. Which is one of the other ones set in America. But I mean, I was watching it and I was like, it's okay. I'll finish it eventually. But another one that I really wanted to mention, similar vibes to this one, was Bakano. And I know you weren't a big fan of Bakano because of
Hakuno. There was Bakano, and there was Lupin the Third.
yeah, Lupin the Third. I was gonna mention Lupin the Third because similar to Lupin the Third, something that I wanted to speak about Great Pretender is that and I mentioned this right. I feel like Great Pretender is timeless because you get a group of characters and all they do is that they con people. The technology they never tell us like what year it is, right? They just tell us it's a modern time, which could like range from the like 20th century to 21st century, and they can just mix up the technology. So similar to Lupin, who like continued to reinvent itself throughout the years with different directors, I feel that I feel like Rip Pretender is timeless because it just offers you a group of characters, their synergies, they have specific character traits, and then the premise is that they take money away from the corrupt. So I thought it was great. And Bakano, similar to what you were talking about, like how the English dub for Bakano is insane because they have the accents perfectly down, and it takes place during like three different times, right? There's three different stories that are happening in Bakano. One when it's occurring during a train travel. The other one is occurring like during the 19th century, and one of them more in like 2 months after the train track or something like that, or a year afterwards. It's a great story. Nikhil wasn't a big fan of it, but like I, lots of people love Bakano. It was from 2007. But I cut you off. You wanted to talk about Lupin, or you want to?
No, no, no. You can talk about Lupin.
Yeah, I'll talk about it later. I think one of the things that we did. mess off. Like you mentioned that your favorite was the first arc, right? And now that I got time to settle down and like reconsider which one I thought was my favorite, I would put arc 1 and 2 to be similar in like entertainment for me.
Mhm.
And they have like different appeals. Like you mentioned, arc 2 deals with like with some events that happen
I mean,
for Abigail.
Arc 2 straight up deals with trauma and depression. Like, it's significantly darker. Like,
Yeah.
even though it's a light-hearted show, quote unquote, it's still like Arc 2 was serious. And that's the reason I put Arc 1 above it, is because I had a lot more fun watching Arc 1. Arc 2, like, I was like, "Whoa," they really pulled me in, I was like, "Damn." Like, that's crazy, and some of the stuff they talk about, we'll go into a little later after you wanna finish, but, I just think it was a lot more serious, which is the only reason. Like, I personally think Arc I can agree with that. I think Arc 1 and 2 are very similar, and I think they're equally as enjoyable. I just edge Arc 1 a little more because I had more fun with it.
Yeah, same dude. I honestly, I think all three arcs are really good. I had a huge difficult time with arc 3 though because it dealt with closure and what it means to say goodbye to someone that had such a heavy influence in your life and just accept that you're not gonna cross paths, which is similar to what you were talking about, right? This whole notion of destiny. Arc 3 effectively says even if you were like maybe destined because the I think Cynthia, right? Her baggage and something that the Great Pretender, which the French guy, right? The ringleader of the entire crew,
Yeah.
um, ends up doing, which is either by coincidence or like intentionally does, right? He makes sure that his team is emotionally and psychologically there, right? And even if them sometimes these, I mean, for the first one, right, Edamame, he recruited him, and the first one dealt with his trauma. The second one dealt a bit no, more with Abigail's trauma and like how she's going to, find closure in that and be able to move on and become better as a person in her growth and stabilize both mentally, psychologically, and like physically, right? Because like it was taking a physical toll on her during that arc because of all the memories that were happening. Because she lost her parents during a bombing uh from America bombing the Middle East all
Yeah.
the time, which is
Yeah.
awful. And it's a lot of political involved with it, which is something Abigail has dealt with throughout the years. So the Great Pretender gets all these. It's crazy because I mean, maybe he's doing it intentionally, right? To make sure he gets the best team he can ever possibly get. And then the third one deals with Cynthia and the fact that she fell in love with this great artist, right? But the only talent that he had was in forgery, and she couldn't live with the fact that he was doing this, even though it was breaking him because he wanted to, get recognition to be an artist himself.
Yeah.
So in that arc, like in a different past, in the past, in a different life, right? They were gonna get married, but now in the present, in the conclusion of the arc, they meet up in the same coffee shop that they met, and they have a final goodbye, and it was really difficult for me to watch because it's just there's a lot of things in this life, and you never get the closure that they got then and there to properly say goodbye to each other with no hard feelings.
Yeah, I think, if it taught me anything, it's to live life with no regrets. That arc was really interesting to me because it was relatable in a lot of ways, but at the same time, like, it was hard because I think it was relatable, at least for me personally. I thought
Sure.
it was like, wow, like, wow. I think the hardest part was, like, accepting that you're not gonna be able like, I I I think it's just hard to accept that fact that, like, there are times where you're not gonna be able to do this, but there are times where you are, and I think that closure is so important for this reason, because you never know what could happen. And I think, if anything, like, Arc 3 was arguably one of the most relatable because I think every person in this world has a regret of some sort or something that they wish they could have done better. And, like, getting that closure for that is just so important. And I think in Arc 3, they kinda, like, hit that over the head. Obviously, like, I don't think Arc 3 is the best because I didn't have the most fun watching it, but I think Arc 3 was the most relatable, um, to everyone, not just me. And for that reason, like, I definitely think it was still very touching, especially, like, I remember watching that scene when they were both at the coffee shop. I really wanted him to confess again, but then I kind of realized like, yo, like it shouldn't happen. I feel like at this point they both moved on and they realized like there are different points in their lives, and it's just not going to happen even if they wanted to. And I think Cynthia talks about it as well, like right before she enters the coffee shop. She's like, "Yeah, even if I have feelings for him, it doesn't matter because we just can never get together." So
It's not like they hate each other, like not at all. If
they
anything,
don't. Yeah, yeah, they don't.
they still love each other, but not. It's just never gonna happen. And it's like
Yeah.
it's a different kind of love too at that point, though. It's like one of respect, if anything.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. I wanna talk about Arc 2 briefly,
Yeah, yeah.
just
I do want to
because
mention like one thing though. Because something that's really important about whenever I think of closure, like in real life, I feel like closure is a privilege that you mostly never get the opportunity to have it.
yeah, yeah, it's very hard to get.
Yeah.
I feel like which is really funny because the whole point of closure, I think, is like it's almost like fate, right? It's in a lot of ways, in some senses, you need fate to get that closure. Like things need to happen the right way for you to get it. Like if you want to ask someone about something or like talk to someone you haven't seen in like years, um, you're not like a lot of the times you're not going to reach out and text them like, "Hey, you want to meet up?" But like, what if you, like, randomly run into them and then the opportunity is presented it to yourself? Like, I don't know. I think it goes back to the topic of, like, fate and destiny we're talking about, um, which I think is funny because a lot of the times it doesn't usually happen. So I definitely think Arc 3 was romanticized a lot.
Yeah, it was, but I appreciate that actually.
Yeah.
I do because you don't get that often in real life, but at least you can see it.
No, exactly, and when it happens, I feel like it a lot of the times it does happen like that. Like, I mean, obviously, like, it depends on the situation, it depends on, like, the person, but I feel like it was a really good way of putting it. Um,
It was definitely romanticized, and I agree with that. But I also love the direction that the director took, or everyone involved, right, in the team, to make it so that they say goodbye. Because even if it was romanticized, it's healthier for them to say goodbye than it would be to them to try and start something up again, even though they know it's not going to work out, which takes a lot of courage.
what I find the most interesting now is after Arc 3, everyone in the main cast, right? They accept the Great Pretender. They all kind of, have resolved their stories to some extent. So they've all found that closure. But the only person who hasn't is the Great Pretender. And like the 9 episodes, we're gonna see that. I feel like it was all building up to that. So I feel like these next 9 episodes are gonna be like they're gonna be explosive because we're gonna see a lot of like why like I think it'll bring everything full circle. Is what I'm trying to get at, and I'm very
Yeah.
excited personally.
I mean, they're definitely not done growing as characters because that never happens. Like,
Yeah.
and a person never stops growing. The moment they think they stop growing is the moment they just regress, if anything else.
Mhm.
Um, but they're getting closer to being someone that they can accept as themselves and to find the principles that they would die on. Like they choose to die on this certain mountain or whatever, and without having any regrets, of course. And it's dangerous because whenever a writer begins to do this with their characters, effectively what they're doing is that they're making it so that they are not immune to the effects of their universe that they write. Because at that point, they're because usually when it comes to writing characters or stories or whatever, the moment that a character finishes their arc, they're not immune to anything that can happen. At that point, they can be used as a drive for someone else's growth, which is dangerous, and it's often done with specifically mentor figures who have had their stories already completed, which you see it often. And I love the fact that Great Pretender, you're going to see throughout these arcs, you see the characters resolve their inner struggles as best as they can, even though they still have some baggage going on, but they're gonna get through it. So this last arc, I'm very looking forward to it because it's the Great Pretenders arc, and we're gonna see what makes him tick.
Yeah, that's gonna be the most entertaining.
I'm
Um,
hoping.
and then I did want to talk about Arc 2 briefly before we wrap everything up. Arc 2, I think, was the most powerful. I think Arc 1 was the most fun, Arc 3 was the most emotional. I think Arc 2 was the most powerful. I say this because Arc 2 dealt with depression, trauma, and anxiety. Those are 3 really, really, really heavy topics that a lot of people don't usually like to talk about, and they tackled it in a way that felt very unique. And I know I'm using the word unique a lot here, but really, Arc 2 was just different. Like, first of all, the fact that they showed, like they talked about, like, the war between Iraq and America and, like, the repercussions of the constant bombings that happened because of America. I have yet to see in not only an anime, but a cartoon or medium in both America or otherwise in Japan that has tackled something of this caliber, and more specifically from the issue of the bystanders who were involved, whose families got torn apart because of these bombings. I think that's powerful, and I think that's unique. And, like, the trauma that's inflicted from that obviously is just tremendous, and, like, what they've had to go through is just insane. And being able to show that in an anime adaptation, I feel like is really, really, really special. And then not only that, but we see Abby confronting an ex-US military war vet. And we see their interaction. I think one of the most powerful episodes in the entire show was when he was they Abby took him out to, like, it was a view of Singapore, and he pulls out a knife, and then Abby was like, I'm going to kill you. And then he was like, do it. And I think just that interaction right there was powerful. Really no other way to describe it, because at that moment, Abby really saw, like, obviously, like, he probably wasn't the one who killed her family, but he was part of why, like, he was part of that responsibility. He was part of that trauma that was inflicted on her. And she saw an outlet to all the shit that she's gone through, pardon my language. And I think it was that interaction was so beautiful. I was honestly shocked. Like, I can't begin to describe how amazing I think that arc was. Even though I say the first arc is my favorite because I had the most fun with it, I think arc 2 was objectively probably the best. Because just that interaction alone makes it better than the other 2. And then on top of that, you have the flushing out of Abby. You see her insecurities, you see, like, the type of person she is, and they're all so real, they're all so human, it's crazy. You see her, like, actively fighting depression and anxiety, and same with the US war vet. You see him actively fighting this trauma and depression that he's gone through as well. You see both sides of the same coin, which I think, and they're both war vets, right? They were both trained in different ways, and obviously they were both made to do different things, but I think it's really interesting to see both sides of the same coin kind of go through very similar things. And I think they realized that towards the end of the arc, and after, like, the wheelchair dude asked Abby, like, just kill me. I don't have a purpose to live. I think that was powerful. So I literally cannot praise this arc high enough. I think, and this arc is the reason I say that this is the anime of 2019 or 2020, I'm sorry. I don't think there's an original that has been better than The Great Pretender solely because of this arc. And I'm, like, willing to, like, stand my ground on this because I was blown away by that interaction. And more so, I was blown away by the fact that they chose to address such a controversial yet very, very, very important topic that I don't think a lot of people know about. So that's just, like, my 2 cents. And I wanted, like, a huge rant about that, but
I think you got most of it. Yeah, that's definitely. I agree with you. That's the strongest scene in the entire 3 arcs that we saw. I also think that that scene deserves its own discussion, and it merits the entire quality of that arc itself, because it's, in the end of the day, it's an arc structured around Abby, right?
yeah.
And it's an, like, this similar to similar to Vinland Saga, it deals with the cycle of hatred and revenge, and that it only breeds more hatred. And being able to just let go of that and let go of the hate that you have within your heart allows you to progress not only as yourself, but to help other people around you and to assure that they don't feel the similar pain, which sucks because, like you mentioned, it was the most powerful one. It's also probably the one that's the least relatable, but the most archetypical because it's 100% Abby's story. Like we can't. It's difficult for us to relate to what Abby and what this war veteran went through because it's a life that while many people do experience, a good amount of us will not experience the kind of trauma that both of them went through, right?
Yeah.
Individually and together. Because I do not think, unfortunately, I'm not in a situation like Abby, where she loses her loving parents. And similarly, I'm not in a situation like that Warben, where I have to make a conscious effort to listen to my superiors and just effectively commit murder, like sanctioned murder, which takes a toll on you too. In addition to also losing, becoming because the guy the war veteran got into an accident which happened which fortunately even after his like time in the military he still had an able body which is something a privilege that I know not a lot of war veterans have in addition to having there's the like PTSD and all of these different psychological problems. Fortunately the war veteran was able to find a life after military service which was in an airplane. What's the name of the sport
Airplane
that
race competition, basically.
yeah something I mean yeah it was like they get on airplanes and then they race right
Yeah.
which that happened and he ended up having he ended up becoming wheelchair bound due to an accident right from from the events coordinator which this arc deals with swindling the coordinator's money because of all of the because effectively the guy behind the event staging every single one of the races. They're all phony. Um, there's no real tension if you because everything's already mapped out. The only time that it wasn't mapped out was when this war veteran actively decided to make an actual race with his friend. Right, that's what we learned, and you know the organizer learned about this and just couldn't let that go. It sabotaged the plane, leading to his situation, his current status and of being unable to walk appropriately.
Yeah.
Which one of the I mean that scene that you mentioned, the fact that he was still able to stand from his wheelchair because he was taking physical therapy also shows a lot because we also didn't mention this, but one of the characters that is involved with the war veteran is his wife. And after the accident, he just wasn't the same. He was just filled with a lot of rage. And even though it's like the show of the man that she loved, and she's hoping that man returns back, because we do learn that the war veteran, whenever he was in part of these races, he was sending money to charities.
He was, yeah. He was actively working with like all these different funds and making sure. And something I really want to highlight too, that going off of what you said, Francisco, I think he was also disabled and like he was a disabled war veteran. Like I don't know how to emphasize how like incredible I think that is and like how powerful they made his character. But and they showed him to like not be helpless. Like he was someone that was still like struggling to find his inner self. Even though he had a disability. And I want to highlight that. I don't again, I off the top of my head, I cannot think of any shows that have done that very effectively. Obviously, you have shows like Daredevil and stuff, but like
Uh,
this just takes it to another level. Like because he has so much behind that. There was a lot of meaning behind it. I don't know. I just think it's something that's
I agree, man. I agree. There's a good amount of that. And then I have a friend who also her old man is also a war veteran, and similar, dude's also wheelchair bound. So when I was seeing that, I was like, it's difficult to not think about the situation and just knowing the kind of people that are around them who still love them, even for their situation, even though they might be struggling with like their inner demons. telling them that they're worthless or whatever, which happened to the war veteran, right? When Abigail confronted him, he was like, "Yeah, sure, kill me. I have nothing. I have nothing to live for." And I wanted to emphasize that you mentioned like not a lot of shows talk about the situation with Iraq and like America bombing, right? And I think it's because it's so recent, man. It's difficult to approach it because
I don't think it's
even
just that it's recent. It happened under the Obama presidency, and
yeah, that guy, yeah,
we shouldn't. I don't want to get too much into politics, but no president has been very good, and that is the best way to put that. And in order to not get too much into politics, I don't want to get into it. But because I think it was under the Obama presidency, it was kind of overshadowed because it was also happening around the time like they were capturing Bin Laden and stuff. So again, the fact that they highlighted this and they made it a prominent theme in a show that was like mass distributed not only to North America but in Japan, and like this is now like worldwide recognition. I'm really hoping people see that and be like, wow, that's crazy, and like kind of understand the inhumane acts that America has done because this was not right in any way. Like what we should not have gone to war in a lot of the things we've done, and the bombings were not justified at all. Um, so again, the fact that the Great Pretender kind of highlights this is just, it, yeah, I don't know. I think it just makes it.
it's yeah. Every single one of these arcs are really powerful in their own right. There's there's different themes involved with all of them. But I think now that we spoke about these three arcs, I think we can. I know I spoke about Lupin, right? I wanted to focus on what makes an original and what makes what does it mean to have an IP under your belt?
Mhm,
Because one thing we know for sure, even though we know that this situation with with the bombing, like it happened during the year 2000, it can still happen. It's not like it's just gonna stop from then on, right? It's probably still happening right now.
yeah.
Just different situation, different players, whatever. And there's certain traits about intellectual property that makes them unique to what they are, right? For example, let's do Doctor Who, right? Doctor Who has the TARDIS. Doctor Who also has, I guess, the Doctor, right? And there's always a companion. You have like those three aspects that resonate with Doctor Who, and Doctor Who is also timeless, effectively because any writer or anyone with a vision can come in, take a Doctor, and then because of the fact that it's a time travel series, put them anywhere they want and write a story with those characters involved. And I think Great Pretender is in a similar situation, just like Lupin, for example, right? Sherlock Holmes, similar situation, not too similar, right? Lupin effectively is more free than Sherlock Holmes because it's also not restricted. Lupin the Third is similar to Great Pretender's a criminal mastermind, and they get a crew of people and they just do crime, right? And it's great because there's different aspects of Lupin the Third. One of the main things is like these set pieces that has Lupin navigating throughout these different kind of situations, very difficult situation, and expressing like sleight of hand, adept, how adept the gentleman is when it comes to something that should be surreal and like superhuman, and yet always managing to accomplish the given task. And similar to these two IPs, I think Great Pretender also has some unique traits about them. For example, Adamame. One of the things that was repeatedly brought up, and you're gonna see it throughout all of these arcs, right? Is that he has this asphyxiation for these specific figures, right? And they, of course, each one of them represents something. One of the prime ones that he ends up getting, right, the first after the end of arc one, in the beginning of arc one, he opens a figure and he says these are a sign of good luck, or a slight note of fortune. He gets like a figure that represents this man who almost unified all of Japan, symbolizing that Adamame is going to rise to a position that's going to let him effectively conquer something. I don't know, be it Japan or be some kind of goal that Adamame wants to. Like that's what the figure represents. But at the end of the arc, right, after everything's said and done, he goes at it again, and he gets a peasant. He gets no one. He gets a figure that represents nothing. A figure that represents humble beginnings. and that's the end of arc 1. And arc 2, once again, you get another figure introduced in there, and arc 3 once again gets another figure introduced in there. Arc 3, I believe it had a king of France or Britain or something who had the shortest reign to their whatever, to their kingdom or their position known as king, and then they left that position to go chase after love, which is, love has a lot to do with the themes involved in arc 3. So each one of these figures are chosen specifically from the people involved in these arcs, and that's one of the pinnacles of what they're trying to do with an IP. They're trying to get, like, in each one of these arcs, we're going to have Anemame pick out a figure, and it's going to give you a glimpse of what the future of this arc is going to be about. And I love that they did that. I mentioned the timeless arc and the fact that they're not restricting it to any specific year, date, or nothing like that. It's just a group of people during the 21st century, and that's what it is. The other thing, of course, that I forgot to mention is that their freedom given through their adaptitude at knowing multiple languages and being fluent in them, like English, Japanese, French. I think those are the main three that I'm familiar with that was spoken in the three arcs given. But I wouldn't be surprised if these people are like multilingual. That's my take for what makes the Great Pretender interesting, original, and one with high potential to be continued and expanded on.
Yeah, I agree with that. But to be honest, though, I think after this 24 episodes, I think it should wrap up because I think once you've explored every character, it'll only get repetitive from here on out. I want it to be concise because I think it deserves that. I think it's one of those type of shows that can like end with 24 episodes, and I'd be so happy because it ended on a high note. So
I mean, I agree with you, but like just like you mentioned, the cool thing about them exploring every single character is, that they can keep us structured. But I also admit that, like you mentioned, every single arc feels like a movie. So you can finish arc 1 and be like, all right, I'm done. You can finish arc 2 and say, all right, I'm done. Arc 3
yeah.
and say, I'm done. I just feel that, similar to Lupin the Third, for example, you don't have to watch every iteration in the series, but they're all good. Like there's not wrong with them, and you can always introduce new people, new characters, and you can always get people behind the production team who have a vision and they want to use these characters because they might have loved them growing up. For example, most of the people nowadays after the Doctor Who reboot, they came to the show because they love the show. They love Doctor Who growing up, and they wanna. It's this thing about copyright and being able to somewhat be in the public domain and write their own stories, except being canon. And I love that aspect about these stories that are timeless, because you can just get someone who likes the story who likes the premise. They get them involved and they write a story with those characters. And I'm hoping that it's good, but I'm always willing to give these kind of people a creative chance. Because copyright makes it so most of Star Wars, for example, you're not gonna be able to write a Star Wars and sell it and make money without Disney for at least 100 years from now.
Hmm.
And that's restricting. But at the same time, it's needed. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just a thing.
No, yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. Hmm. I think it's just food for thought.
It is, man. It is. It's just something that I saw, and I thought I could write a crime series with these people, and it would be fine. I mean, I don't think I have the talent for it, but I was just
No, but I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Could be. Hmm.
no, man. I want to watch Vinland Saga now, but I gotta watch JoJo Part 5. I think that was everything I had to say about Great Pretender. I think overall, I really love how you pushed me to watch it. I had a good time with it.
I'm glad.
I did exactly how you suggested. Like I watch every arc sequentially. If you want, take a break. I don't have to watch all three arcs at once. Consider it more of a movie experience. Put your phone away, sit down, enjoy it, and it was great. Nothing to say. It's an original. There's a lot of passion behind it. Which studio? So, so far, they haven't done anything too bad. And they might not be in what's it called? Attack on Titan, but the studio that they left Attack on Titan 2 isn't bad. Like they're not a bad studio. Do you know what studio that's taking care of
Um,
Attack on Titan?
I know it's a high-profile studio, so I'm not worried. AOT.
Yeah, it's definitely a high profile studio. They know what they're doing with their action pieces. So, Attack on- let me look it up right
Mappa. Oh, it's
now.
Mappa.
Oh, dude, Mappa.
I'm
Didn't
not
I
worried.
swear, didn't Mappa do God of High School? Yeah, Mappa did God of High
Mappa
School.
did God of High School, yeah.
God of High School has phenomenal action pieces.
Yeah, it's a bad like plot wise, it's not a great anime, but like action wise and visually, very nice. So I
They
think it, I think they are very good to be doing Attack on Titan. To be honest, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, Attack on Titan story's already been taken care of, right? They
Pretty
just need
much,
to get
yeah.
more.
They don't really have.
It,
I mean, they already have basically the set pieces there with the end of the manga ending soon. So I think they've got everything covered right now. I think it'll be
yeah,
fine.
I'm not worried about it at all. It's gonna be exciting to finally like watch it because I do consider Attack on Titan to be up there with something like Full Metal Alchemist if the story concludes, and I have full faith in it, right? I'm assuming the story concludes in a good bow. It's everything's wrapped up.
Yeah, I'm personally a reader, so I'll probably read the ending. Maybe I'll watch it if I really want to.
I will
Um,
watch it. The anime is always good, but I'll watch.
okay.
I think it's a classic at this point. I would. I'm not. I don't feel too far off giving it that kind of credit.
Mhm. I think we talked about it. It was
We
our
did talk
anime.
about it.
I think it was our anime of the decade. Regardless, yeah, I agree. I think The Great Pretender is the best original anime to have come out in 2020. By far. There was a lot of anime in 2020 that came out that I loved, but I think The Great Pretender just did it for me. I think it was so good, and it was fun. Honestly, I might go as far as saying it was in my top 3 original anime in the last since the beginning of 2019. So we've gotten some hell since Bunny Girl Senpai, so winter 2018. So we've gotten some really good anime since then. Um, so obviously a lot of stuff to compare it to, but in terms of best original stuff, I mean, I definitely think The Great Pretender's up there. And when it's all said and done, I genuinely believe that it will be my top 10 because there's so much of the story that I love. And like you said, Francisco, I'm just going to add to your point. I think that this is kind of timeless. Like this kind of show is timeless. And I think The Great Pretender will be timeless because of that. I think it'll always be an anime that people will talk about, but it'll be under the radar. It may never really get like as popular as some like big IPOs and stuff, but I think it's that one anime that'll be like, wow, like this is really good. And so I encourage literally every single one of my viewers to watch this show. Our viewers to watch the show. I cannot praise it high enough. I think Wit really killed it as an original IPO. I'm so excited for the next 9 episodes. In fact, I didn't even know the next 9 episodes were coming out on the 21st, but I will be watching it as soon as it comes out. In fact, I'll probably just like put it on like my TV and just like sit and like watch all of it. With straight up binge, no distractions, just turn off my phone, turn on my laptop, and just watch. But yeah, I mean, I can't recommend it enough. I think it's fantastic. I think you all should give it a shot. If anything, if there's an arc you don't like, the coolest thing I think about The Great Pretender is each arc is very independent. So you don't I would just say watch the first episode to know who the characters are. And then honestly, if you don't like the first arc, just go to the second arc. If you don't like the second arc, just go to the third arc. Each arc is very independent to each one. I personally think you should watch all three because I think they're all nuts and they're all really good. But each one is so independent where you can pick and choose which ones you like. And I think, again, it makes it very enjoyable. You can consume it at the pace you want to consume it. And I think that's very good to have for any show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a fantastic anime. I think it's probably easily the best anime I've watched in 2020. And I'm including I'll just include originals for now. In terms of sequels, I want to say it's actually better than most of the sequels I've watched, but I'm only really watching ReZero and a few other things. So, but yeah, Great Pretender's great. Can't recommend it enough. And that's really all I gotta say about it.
Yeah, man. I do want to mention I did have some slight criticism. Sometimes I felt that things were too great. This is like great percent of everything like ended up working out for the guy, right? I felt like sometimes I was like, I don't know about this, but overall, looking back at it, I know it did like it was an issue for me closer to the end of arc one, for example. I think if I remember correctly. Arc two, it wasn't that it wasn't Arc two wasn't really focused on like getting you into the heist kind of vibe, right? It was if anything, Arc two was an easier heist than Arc one. Arc one was a very convoluted heist where you realized, wow, this is either either like faith happened here, or you guys planned out way too much, and I'm surprised all the pieces ended up working out together. And Arc three was laid back actually for when it comes to the scale of these arcs. When it comes to the scale of the con, I thought after Arc one, I thought everything was gonna be as convoluted as that. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Right? It was just this one was a unique case for Arc one, which I really appreciated. The other thing I did want to mention is now that you mentioned originals, there is a few originals that I consider to be part of my top five. And I know we spoke about this, right? Because like sometimes people ask you like, "Oh, what's your favorite anime?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know." So I made an artificial list. It's not fake, but rather it's like something that I know at the top of my head that I can respond to this question. And I know you made something similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So within my top five, I have two originals, which one's FLCO and Kyoso Giga
Wait, top five anime of all time?
of mine. Yeah, of my personal favorite. It's not of all
Oh,
time.
okay.
There's
Okay.
some that I just considered. There's some anime that I just that I don't even put in my top five because I don't think it's worth to be up there because I just consider it a classic. I like a classic might be the incorrect adjective, but I consider them to be top notch. For example, I'm not gonna put Hunter x Hunter in my top five because I think it's great, right? It's a masterpiece.
I don't put like One Piece or Hunter x Hunter or anything in that. They're in a separate thing of their own. I never counted.
Okay, so you're similar to that, but like this is like, one of my personal top fives that I think I really like. And it speaks to me at a personal level. So Kyoso Giga, FOC are up there, they're anime originals. And if you ever have the opportunity, I would love to hear what you gotta say about them.
FLCL and what's the other one?
Kyoso Giga. Kyoso
I
Giga
haven't
came out in
actually watched
2000.
Kyoso Giga. That sounds kind of interesting.
Kyoso Giga, the director is huge on family, and I know she also directed Blood Blockade, Bloodford or something like that, which one of the season one, which dealt a lot with family themes. And this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the podcast on how these writers and directors they always lean into some specific message they wanna share with their audience.
Hmm.
Yeah, Blood Blockade, Battlefront. The director of season one is the same person who directed Kyoso Giga, and then FOCO uh, is one that just resonates a lot with me because I just watched it at the appropriate time during my development.
Hmm.
One about adolescence. There's a lot of there's a lot. I mean, if you're are you familiar with FOCO by any chance?
Of course. Yeah.
I
Fully
just I
Cooley
don't
is like
know.
a classic. Everyone knows it. I feel like everyone knows it.
Yeah.
I don't remember if they showed it on, because I remember watching it when I was younger, but I don't remember if they showed it on Toonami.
Did it?
I might be
Did
tripping, because I remember watching like One Piece, Dragon Ball, and um, I think Black Butler on Toonami, but I don't know if they ever showed Fully Cooley. They might have, but I don't know. I remember watching a few episodes though. I don't think I've watched it in its entirety. I should at some point.
It's for free. It's on for free online on YouTube through Funimation's channel. Oh yeah, Ria Matsumoto is the person who directed Kyosukiga in season one of Blood Blockade.
I just read the plot. Very interesting. It seems very superhero-ish, which I might take a look at.
It has a lot of vibes with FLCL and Monogatari, which are also some of my favorites.
Monogatari is in my top five. Like it's interchangeable with FMA, but FMA is also like a classic. So like, but yeah.
Well, that's all I gotta say, man. If you can close it up. Because I have nothing
Cool.
else to
I
contribute.
mean, I don't have much to talk about. I think I'll just briefly. We wanted to do an episode on this, but we weren't able to, I think. So I think now that we can now, I'll just briefly go over what I watched over the summer because I'm not watching anything right now. I'm just reading. And then maybe stuff I'm watching right now. So, uh, I have pretty much cemented my top 5 list over the summer. My I watched, some highlights where Chihaya Faru, which I loved. Um, March Comes In Like a Lion in one of my top 5. I love that show. Um, I watched so many different shows, I think. I watched Silver Spoon, fantastic. I watched, I don't even know. I watched a lot of different I watched a lot of shows. Um I watched a lot of, KyoAni shows. So I watched, like, Love Chunibyo, which was good. I watched, um, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which I loved. I love that show so much. It's it's literally just fan service, but it's also really good. So I would recommend it. With the caveat that you should probably be 15 years or older to watch it because it's it gets really weird, but it's
You know
very
what?
such a good show.
Kobayashi is a lot weirder in the manga, and that just speaks volumes of how talented KyoAni is to make something that isn't wholesome actually have a heart.
Yeah, it's so cute. Oh my god. That show is I love that show so much.
Like the
Um,
manga, from what I read, is not as good as the actual anime. Like
yeah, I've heard it's
by
a lot more
long
like
shot.
it's pretty much Dojin, correct?
Yeah, you're not wrong for saying that, but and like I'm always amazed with the direction KyoAni decides to take with their production work because
Yeah.
they always give it a heart. Yeah, I think. Was that everything at the top of your head?
Yeah, and then right now I'm watching ReZero Season 2, God of High School, and I recently finished reading Solo Leveling, or caught up. So, apparently rumor is Solo Leveling is gonna become an anime, but, I'd recommend reading it. Honestly, it's pretty entertaining. It's pretty much a shonen. If you wanna, like if you like God of High School or Tower of God, I think you'll like, Solo Leveling. Should be a good time.
Yeah, now that you mentioned Tower of God, I did watch one thing during the summer, Infinity Train, and I'm hoping maybe one day you watch it, which is just it's a regular cartoon. It's on HBO Max. If you have access to that, definitely watch it through there.
I do.
Yeah, the only way we're gonna get a season 4 of Infinity Train is if enough people watch it on HBO Max that HBO decides to order for another season. I don't know. Maybe there's another season. As far as I'm
This
aware,
is the
there's
person who
not much
created
after that.
Regular Show? Are you serious?
Yeah, that person's involved. Yeah.
No, this is the person who created Regular Show.
Oh, like really?
Like, created it. Like, JG Quintel was a director,
Whoa.
but this person, like, I think co-created it or something. Holy yeah, I'll take a look at it. I mean, he was involved Regular Show is, like, one of my favorite shows. I love Regular Show, so I will definitely take a look. I just,
Yeah.
maybe
Infinity Train is
later, but I will take a look. I'll watch it.
Infinity Train is very emotionally mature for what it is. It's crazy. It's everything that I was hoping Tower of God would be in Infinity Train because they're very similar in premise.
Mhm,
God, I'm very big fan of Infinity Train. I'm very happy for the people that can grow up with this show right now.
mhm.
Hopefully, maybe we can make an episode about it one day. Maybe we can even talk about solo leveling one day. Once the anime comes closer, we can collect
Yeah,
our
once the
thoughts
anime comes out, there's definitely a lot I have to talk about it.
if an anime comes out. Yeah, we spoke a bit about it. We have like some different opinions, and I think I can definitely get my time to like write down what I think makes this show good and whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll take a look.
And I know
Especially
you were,
those.
yeah,
No, yeah, what are you saying?
you said you were also interested in looking into like some other reads, for example.
Yeah, I'm trying to read a lot more manga because, like, I have a personal rule for all the viewers. I do not read and I don't watch anime during the school year, but I will read manga. So I finished Solo Leveling in about 2 days. I've been thinking about reading God of High School, but I'm not sure. Um, Francisco recommended Ragnarok. I might take a look at that. I read the premise and I read the first chapter actually. So it looks interesting. But I've been like looking at different webtoons, seeing what I'm kind of interested in. I haven't like really extensively looked, but like this weekend, if I get some free time, I might kind of sit down and just like find a few that I'm really interested in, write them down, and maybe start reading because why not?
I do have if in the case of webtoons, there's like one that's really similar to ReZero, and it's a time loop one. I think maybe if you end up deciding to read, this one that I'm gonna probably send you, I'm not gonna say it here, so I want to keep it a secret. But when we do our ReZero season 2 recap, I think we might consider talking about this webtoon
Okay.
in the following podcast and compare it to ReZero and like what they do good as being time loop stories because I do think they're similar, and I think it's a quick read. It's really interesting. So
Okay.
I'll,
If
I'll
it
share I'll share with you.
Yeah,
It's
just
something
send
to
it
look
over to me.
forward to.
I'll read it. If it's short too, like I'll definitely read it. Reading is never a problem for me. So take a look.
Yeah. I think that's it, man. We're just gonna cut it off
Yeah,
there.
I
Great
think that's it.
pretender.
So thank you so much for listening. Before we go, a few updates. So we're gonna be having Burn the Witch out soon. Really sorry for the delays. We've been waiting for all of it to come out so we can just talk about it all at once instead of talking about it weekly like we promised in one of our One Piece episodes. So we'll be definitely focusing on that. And we'll probably have a One Piece episode for you guys, I'm hoping by either next Monday or relatively soon. We got to get back on that. We figured we'd wait 2 weeks per episode, so that way we have time to like get 2 chapters in, and then we can discuss. So we have a lot more to talk about. Um, and yeah, so keep your eyes out for that. And in those episodes, we'll probably announce what our next month's episode will be. So definitely just keep your eyes out for that. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. We hope you guys are staying safe during these trying times, and we hope that you enjoyed this episode.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Everyone.